All right, welcome everyone to the October member meeting. We'll go ahead and get started. We have a pretty full agenda tonight, so I just want to welcome you all. If you have not met me yet, my name is Megan Hoddle Cox. My child Theo is a Leaf, and this is our second year at the cooperative school, and I am one of the co-presidents. So the first thing we're going to do tonight is introduce all of the board, just so all of you know who everyone is and who to reach out to if you have specific questions. So as I said, I'm Megan. I'm one of the co-presidents. Kate Harrington is our other co-president. Kate, do you want to wave? And you should feel free to reach out to either of us. We do a lot of the parent communication and kind of overall running of the board and just making sure everyone has the information that they need. So with that, I will turn it over to Charlotte, and then we'll just kind of walk through the board to introduce all of us.
I'm on. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Charlotte Sexton. My son Ian is a track, and this is our second year at the cooperative school. I'm the Vice President of Growth, which is responsible for vetting real estate, creating business models, and working on financing resources with banks and with the development committee. Historically, we focused on looking outward to find other real estate that could accommodate larger class sizes and extended hours. But following our first year of COVID practices, realizing we can do a full outdoor program, and after a lot of years looking for real estate that just never quite suited our needs, we've decided to refocus our efforts to improve the current building. Obviously, most of you know that we've created the outdoor classroom, and but you probably don't know that now we're shifting our efforts to focus on increasing the square footage of the current building itself. It's all in an effort to, obviously grow and increase class sizes and hours. So we have a great team of people working on it with a lot of experience. I work closely with the co-presidents and the directors and many other members of the board, but obviously we're always looking for ways that the members can help. So if you have anything to contribute, or if you just have questions or comments at any time, we'd all love to hear from you. I'm going to go ahead and put my email in the chat in case you don't have it. And I guess I can turn it over to maybe Sunny, if that works.
Sure, thanks, Charlotte. Hey everybody, I'm Sunny Widman. My son Will is in the tracks class, and I am the development chair. And so our committee is responsible for supporting the school financially through donations and through grants, bringing all of that revenue in. So ways that you can help us, we're going to have some campaigns this fall coming up, including links that you can share with families and friends, and through Giving Tuesday on Facebook to help us with our fundraising efforts. We'll have a very special campaign that we're moving towards with Scholarship Fund that you'll hear about later. But yeah, could just really use your support in getting the word out with anybody that you think might want to support the school. And thank you. Yes, this is Leslie recognizes this is one of Will's Leaves paintings. I'll hand it over to Mike. Is Mike here from facilities?
I'm here.
Awesome.
I'm here. Thanks, Sunny. Like Sunny said, I'm Mike. I'm the director of facilities. We have two kids in the school, Zuza, and she's in the third year. She's a track. And we have Lev, our son. He's in his first year. He's a seed. It's our third year at the school. So the facilities committee is responsible for maintaining and keeping the school clean and safe. One thing that we're going to do with the school is we have the big cleans. The track already did their big clean. The seeds have their big clean coming up. I think, well, I can't remember the date, but the seeds have one and the leaves have one. And that's a great way for you to connect with my committee and get to just know the school better. One way we engage in the community is just by keeping our school visually appealing for our neighbors and people who just pass by the school. My email is always open to any all members' concerns. I'll drop my email in the chat as well. Thanks. And maybe, I don't know who wants to go next. Maybe Does Jana want to go next?
Thanks, Mike.
Wow.
So I am Janet Jefferson, and I am mom to Reader Grace Maley, who's in the tracks class. And I am the director of the programs committee. Our committee is responsible for parent education in a nutshell. What that actually looks like is membership meetings like tonight, trainings, orientations, and Saturday coffees. You're going to see more of these coming up soon in trainings and orientations, but then a few things have been shelved until we're more in person, like the Saturday coffees. We engage with the current Tacoma Park Cooperative Nursery School through things like membership meetings, but then we also engage the greater public through our speaker series, which you'll see more of through our membership meetings, and then also through Saturday coffees. It's a space for us to educate ourselves, but then also our greater community. We, the programs committee, are always welcoming new ideas and feedback. So whether you have maybe a guest author you would like to introduce us to and connect us with, or maybe you have a specific topic that you would like Amy Dumeyer, our awesome parent educator, to cover, just reach out to me, and I would love to hear any feedback that you may have. And then I'm also going to put my email in the chat, and then I'm going to hand it over to Yasmin, the DEI director. Yasmin, are you here?
Yasmin actually isn't on yet.
Oh no,
but
that's all right. How about Teresa, admissions?
Sure thing. Thank you, Janet. I'm Teresa Jimenez, and my child is Mavis, but also Juna. Mavis used to go to Tacoma Park Cooperative Nursery School, and now she's in kindergarten, and I have Juna now, who is a leaf, and I am the admissions chair, admissions director, and our admissions team communicates and maintains contact with prospective families. We are doing outreach to the community, spreading the word about our school and our mission of admissions, and as well as managing the application and enrollment process for new families. We're engaging the community through email and phone calls, through community events, through sharing on listservs and Facebook groups. We're actually heading now into what I will call admission season, although it's never not admission season. We will be hosting information sessions virtually in advance of opening applications and the deadline for those, which is in February of next year. Anyway, all that to say, it's about to be time for families that want to join the school next year to start to know us and submit their applications. So we always can use help posting and sharing about those information sessions. If you are part of a listserv or social media group that you where you think we should be posting about that, I would love to know. And another thing that you can do is if you have a t-shirt, wear it and talk about our school when you're out and about, when you're at the playground or wherever you may be with other families. We want everyone to know about us. So thank you. I will hand over now to Lola and her assistant Jennifer, if that's okay. You ready, Lola?
Ready. Thanks, Teresa. My name is Jennifer. I am mom to Lola, who is a C this year. It's the first year with the school. And I am the director of the Survival Guide. And our committee is responsible for producing the guide. In years prior, it's like a magazine-like resource, information on businesses and also city resources within Tacoma Park. The Survival Guide is our school's primary outreach effort, fundraiser, and it's 100% paid for by advertisements from local businesses, which is how you will help us with the Survival Guide. In the years past, we have sort of relied on parents to help us to sell those advertisements in the print guide. With the pandemic still ongoing and also sort of efforts to be moving towards more of a sustainable model, We are experimenting with an online community resource and fundraiser this year for the Survival Guide that will continue our, committee's mission of encouraging Tacoma Park and our extended community with supporting local businesses. So stay tuned on how you might help us in the future. But long story short, when the time comes, we'll need your connections, your talents, and your time to figure out ways that we can get businesses to support our Purple School. So if you have interest in any of that or feedback on this new sort of strategy, I'm going to drop my email over here, just like everyone else. Please do reach out. We're excited about making this year different. So thank you. And I will pass it to, who should I pass it to? Gary. Hi, Gary.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Lola. Hello, for those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Gary Liang. I'm sure you see my emails here and there. My team consists of the class reps. My son Tyson is currently enrolled in the tracks class, and my title is the member support chair. My community committee is responsible for address any concerns for all families. We assist new families to get acclimated with the school. Basically, we're here for you guys. Anything at all that you guys need, please reach out to class rep or us. We engage the community by setting up official play dates, special get-together events. I know that COVID kind of limit us to any sort of get together, but we hope that we can do that soon. And also we assist with our families in need of help, such as meal trains, anything like that. And lastly, just want to put out there once again, guys, our doors is always open. That's including my class reps. Please feel free to reach out if you have any concerns or anything at all that please contact me or my class reps. I would put my email here on the chat box as well, so you guys would know who to contact for the member support committee. And I don't know who should I pass it to at this moment. So if maybe
Dan, you want to take over?
Appreciate it, Dan.
No problem. So hi, my name is Dan. I am the treasurer. I'm not really, don't really have a committee. I am kind of a one-man show at the moment, but so as a treasurer, I provide general financial oversight for the school. We are currently working on the budget, so we can get that done as soon as possible, so all the families will know what tuition will be next year. So that's a top priority for us. And really, where I could use other involvement is I have a lot of a big nonprofit background. I have a big board service background, but I do not have an extensive finance background. So if there's anyone out there who does have a finance background, I could always use a extra set of eyes or ears to assist in anything that we're working on.
And last but certainly not least, Yasmin asked me to introduce her position. So Yasmin is our Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And as in that role, she does a lot of parent interaction on any DEI issues or questions that come up, but she is also kind of the brain behind a lot of the DEI work that the school is undertaking, including the surveys that go out, as well as some of the speaker series components, as well as some DEI training that will be happening early next year. So you should feel free to reach out to her. I'll put her email in the chat if you have any DEI related questions or comments. And with that, I think we're ready to turn it over for our presentation tonight.
Great, thank you, Megan. And welcome everyone. It's nice to see you again. Leslie is going to share the screen, but while she's doing that, in a recent Leaves class week in review, Leslie reminded us how important it is to introduce yourself to children and adults at least 3 times. So following in that spirit, I just want to introduce myself again. I am Amy Dumeyer, and this is my 8th year as a parent member of the Tacoma Park Cooperative Nursery School. My child Ollie is in the Leaves class, and I have 3 other children who also attended the school. My volunteer committee job at the school is parent educator, which is part of the programs committee. So it's nice to see you all here. Leslie, I have our agenda. She'll pull up the 1, 2, 3 of tonight. So tonight, as that's loading, there we go. I shared last month that our teachers use the 1, 2, 3 framework to break to-do items and procedures, especially transitions, into manageable tasks, because it provides comfort for children, and I think it provides comfort for adults too. I added that part. In keeping with that spirit, I mapped out our agenda in a 1, 2, 3 framework. So tonight we will hear a tip for home. We will hear alumni testimonials about the benefits of being an adult member of the cooperative school. And finally, we will learn the specifics about being a member. Okay, I'm going to do the tip for home at the top, since last time we kind of ran out of time for our tip from home and people were so gracious to stay later. So on the next slide, Leslie, our tip tonight is about adapting the key challenge for home. Last membership meeting, I talked all about the student day, and we learned the key challenge is part of the arrival and check-in procedure that the teachers in the Leaves and Tracks, and I meant to check in with you, Teresa. I'm assuming the seeds will grow into it, but might not have started yet. But this is a procedure that the teachers use, and we can adapt the key challenge procedure for at-home use. So I wanted to share a little bit more about that. Leslie, you can go to the next. Oh, you already did, ahead of me. So why? Why might you consider including challenges in your daily at-home rhythm, or it doesn't have to be daily, in your at-home rhythm? I'll just leave it like that. Well, challenges provide an invitation for your child to work on a task, which can be helpful at many times throughout your day. For example, sometimes you might need your child to wind down, say from a very active outdoor play time to a more quiet time of the day, like say it's almost dinner time or it's getting to be bedtime, and you kind of need to bring the energy down a little bit. Working on a task can help with that. Or sometimes you may need your child to be involved in a task so you can do something like cook a meal or answer a work email. That's one reason why you might want to do it. Challenge work also typically involves prompts or directions. The nature of the work gives your child practice with the important skill of direction following, which, as you know, they'll be following directions for all of eternity. This is a good way to practice that. Just as our teachers use the key challenges at school to assess the children's skills, at home, challenges can help parents gather information about their child too. Can your child make a pattern or sort items into categories? Do they know how to string beads on a small piece of string or work clothespins with just 2 fingers? So it can help you gather information. And challenge work helps solidify the message of personal space. The defined workspace used during challenge helps solidify the message of personal space, or as we learned last month, our teachers call this egg space. At school, the children complete key challenges on circle mats or trays. I have some pictures to show you what that looks like. And at home, you can use whatever you have to create an egg space or personal workspace. Anything with a flat surface works, like placemats, a rectangular piece of fabric or felt, a piece of construction paper, a plate, a square that you create with tape on a table. Those are all options, but the idea is you can have a personal space where you're doing your work and someone else isn't reaching into that space. And that's a message that all children ages 2 to 5 at our school are working on. We can work on it at home too. So on the next slide, I have some thoughts about when you might do it. I told you that at school, the children get their temperature checked and hang up their backpack on their hook and wash their hands. And then they meet Ada for the key challenge. So they have a time and place that's predictable. At home, really, you're just going to want to do a time that works best for you. I said you get bonus points if you can find a consistent time, so there's predictability. But it definitely does not have to be every single day, and it doesn't have to be a different challenge every day. Some ideas that I have, or that I've tried out, are first thing in the morning. If I unfortunately don't have any napping children anymore, but when I had nappers, I would try after nap time. I've tried while I was preparing a meal like dinner or before the bedtime routine, which helped kind of slow engines down and was pretty predictable. But again, there's no set time. Those were just some ideas to maybe help you wrap your mind around it. And finally, the what, like what would I do in these home challenges? I have loads of photos to show you too, but you could work on so many things. This list is not exhaustive. I could have kept going, but mark making, which is drawing and making marks, basically. You can work on building challenges or sorting things into categories. Patterning, which is usually a repeating pattern. Can students create a repeating pattern from scratch, or can they continue a pattern that you've started? Sequencing, like putting things in order from shortest to longest. One-to-one correspondence, which is really like matching things one-to-one. I have lots of photos to show you what that looks like, but that actually seems like such an easy task. And it is harder than what an adult might think. And it is prerequisite for much math work and reading work. The tasks can involve counting or subitizing. Leslie talked about subitizing in a TRACS week in review. And she had some examples of key challenges about that. But subitizing is just a math word that means instantly knowing how many without counting. More on that later. Fine motor can be practiced, like cutting or stringing, scooping, using tweezers or clothespins. Playing a game called What is Missing, which was discussed in some weekend reviews, and works on memory and observation, and then mapping. So lots of ideas. I want to show a few pictures. I'm going to start with a couple pictures from school, and then I'll move to some home pictures. So this is a school key challenge. And by the way, you could call them whatever you want to call them. At my house, I, for a long time, was calling them coffee table challenges because they were set up on the coffee table. But this key challenge was asking the students, well, first notice the circle mat to define that personal workspace or egg space. And this was a mapping challenge with the directions to build the mat to the fallen trees at Sligo Creek. So that is what resulted. And you can see that it's a direction following task. Here is a different direction following task. The first photo has the same materials, which I really like that. You can kind of use anything that you can find or have on hand. But these are patterning challenges. In this case, a repeating pattern following the A-B structure. Okay, and then the next photo shows, this is fine motor and counting. The students here are feeding the tennis ball creatures. So they use their hand strength to pinch the tennis ball to open up the mouth, and then they're feeding buttons So it takes a lot of fine motor to do that, and they can count. It could be a counting challenge in that you ask them to feed a certain number to the creature. The next one, this is now transitioning to things that I've set up at home, so you can kind of see they're parallel but different. This one here, you can notice there's still a personal workspace, but that's actually just an extra tile that we had from a bathroom tiling project. And this challenge kind of packed in a lot. Working with clay or Play-Doh in this case builds the fine motor muscles of the fingers and hands, and so does inserting those small wood sticks. They kind of look like toothpicks, I guess, but not pointy. And then this challenge asked to make Baba Yaga, and that is what resulted, making a character. Okay, the next photo is another at-home challenge. And this challenge was done just like 2 days ago. And this asked to make a fall scavenger hunt. So it's a mark making challenge. And then we actually went, that's, those are ghosts and apples and pumpkins. So the goal in this child created scavenger hunt was to find 2 of each. And then we did the hunt, but it was working on mark making, and I was looking at pencil, how the pencil was being held. Okay, the next slide, another at-home challenge to kind of show you the wide range of things you could do. This was a building challenge, and this was for some older children, and I asked them to build a symmetrical building. So that was the only direction. Build something symmetrical. Okay, the next photo is another, I put this one in here just to show you like the range of ages and the idea of working on personal space. And now I didn't have a circle mat or a fancy tray or anything like that. The personal space was just your own paper. And this was making cherry blossom still life from our tree. One of the branches fell down in a storm, so we were working on that mark making. The next photo, just I wanted to show you that key challenges don't have to take place like indoors at a table, super formal. This was a challenge that happened outside. So not a lot of pressure to make it like so formalized like the school setting when you're trying something like this at home. I just have 3 more quick photos to share, and then I'm going to tell you what will happen next. This is a mapping challenge. So the directions here, and it was a collaborative challenge, which I just wanted to try. So there wasn't as much personal space. They were working together. But the idea here was to draw the path to get to the ball hoop tree in the forest. That was their directions. And they named the ball hoop tree something we found that looked almost like a basketball hoop where you could throw your rock in the top and it would come out the bottom. And it was such a highlight that it was so interesting to them that we used it in some other ways. And finally, I want to show you these last 2 photos to show you that using just found materials works wonders. So here was just an outdoor table of things we found, and then, or just collected from our yard. And then next photo shows a challenge that was set up. Again, not super formal, it happened outside. And this was one-to-one correspondence with a lot of scaffolding because the muffin tin had the holes. So it was kind of like fill each with something. And patterning actually resulted, even though I didn't ask for it, in the sense that each row had its own object. Okay, so Leslie, you can go to the next slide. Here, I just wanted to tell you, we have special guests joining us tonight. So I want to honor their time and move on to the next part of our agenda. But as a heads up, there's lots more photos of examples of at-home challenges that I have inserted so I can share more with you at the end of our 1, 2, 3, if that's interesting to you. But yes, we have two guests. I'm really honored that they're here tonight. Tonight, we are learning about how to be adult members of the cooperative school. And I always think it's helpful to start with the why. In this case, why do families want to be members of this particular school? And to help answer that, I invited some parent alumni to share a little bit about their experience. This is going to be our number 2 of tonight's 1, 2, 3. But before I turn over to the floor, I just want to add that I think the fact that these parents are willing to give up part of their evening to join us on Zoom already shows how special and lasting the school's community is. Okay, so I think I wasn't checking. Since I was talking, I think Liz is on here. Liz Ellison, are you? Oh, she's here. She's in her car. She's Zooming from Utah, everybody. This is amazing. Liz, briefly, I just wanted to say the people who I invited here today, I have close relationships with these folks through the school, but I think it's really important to note that we never shared a class. I never had my kids in the same class as these people, and I still have relationships with them. And Liz and I have a relationship because of the community building activities that the school, sponsored, and because of the parent meetings. So that's how we got to know each other. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to you, Liz.
Hi, thank you. It's so fun to see everybody. Yeah, so just a little background on me. My family was a member at the school for 5 years, and we always planned on staying there till the end, but we would have been a track family this year. And we made the hard decision to move to Utah, which I wish I could show you like the mountains. They're like, oh, they're so pretty, but that's why I moved, for the mountains, for nature, and for family. But honestly, one of the hardest parts was giving up our tracks year at the school. So we won't talk too much about it, but I'm back just to report from the other side. So of course, Amy mentioned the why, and the first thing I think of is friendships. It was hard enough to leave for my 5-year-old now, Beverly, to leave her friends, but equally as hard for me to leave my friends that I've met at the school. So just a little plug. I know it's COVID times and it's hard, but try to, if you can, go to those play dates after school at the playground if you feel safe about that. And if a camping trip comes up, even if you're not a camper, just do it, because it's just, that's one of the best parts about it, is just those friendships that are for the young and for the old. And I really feel like even though we've moved, we will continue those friendships as we come back and visit. Most summers is our plan. So that's something I'm looking forward to for the future, is the continuing friendships. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about was just how amazing the exposure is to like the best practices of early childhood education at the Purple School. So I know that co-oping is not currently happening, but perhaps will be soon. So I know you're not exposed to like seeing the teachers in the classroom, but for now, the Week in Review is such an amazing resource. And I still will go back, and I've saved mine, and I will still be like, what was that thing? I remember it. And I can still search back in my weeks in review. So definitely utilize that resource and save those at the end of the year. But when you are able to co-op again, it's just amazing to be in the classroom watching the teachers, these experts, in action. And I feel like one of the major benefits of the school is that I feel like empowered in basically any context with young children. I feel like I kind of know what to do. I know how to do conflict resolution. I know how to get them to take turns. I know what to say. I know how to acknowledge their emotions. Like, I just feel absolutely empowered. So our just one last anecdote is that I'm at a cooperative school here in Utah, and the bar has been lowered significantly. I wasn't, I was planning on that, of course, but so it's a new experience. It feels like a baby school. I'm like, oh, you need my help. So going into the classroom, I've co-opted a few times. We're able to work that out here. And I just felt like I had, the school had very limited training in terms of what to do as a new co-opper. So I was like, I'm gonna just get the vibe. And immediately, like day one, I was like, oh, this teacher needs my help. And so I knew like exactly what to do, how to like work with the children, how to get them to, manage negotiations and all of that. And what was really cool is it's kind of a younger teacher. I think it's her second year, and she's in her early 20s. And I was realizing I have an 8-year-old. So I'm like, oh, I've been parenting and have been exposed to children via play dates, via my 4 years co-oping in the classroom. Like I actually might have more experience than she does working with children. So luckily she's been just an open-minded soul. And I have been able to present some ideas to her as to like improvements that could happen, or like suggestions for certain scenarios I'm seeing with the children. So there's one particular child who just, an average person would look and be like, he has behavioral issues or whatever. But I'm looking at this kid and I'm thinking he just needs more feedback. He needs more heavy work. He needs more gross motor. And I would have no idea about any of that if it wasn't for TPCNS. So I've been able to go to the teacher, look at my old week in reviews, get ideas, go to the teacher and say like, how about we get a rope and pull a tire, an old tire on the playground. Like, let's get this kid to like get some feedback. And her mind is like blowing, and she's, so open to it. And I'm so grateful. But had I not been armed with all this information at the school, I never would ever approach a teacher with suggestions like that. But it's just such an amazing benefit of the school that I really truly feel empowered in these childhood contexts. So yay for spreading the goodness over to Salt Lake City. And I'm just so grateful for Leslie especially, and the teachers at the school. So thank you.
Wait, before you leave, Liz, today one of the Leaves class, the little kids left a sweatshirt, and Ian looked at it, who's in the track, sorry families, you're just gonna have to listen to the story, and said, oh, that's Beverly's. And I was like, but is it? It is. They all knew that Beverly had a sweatshirt exactly like that. Anyway, thank you so much for coming. Thank you. We miss you.
Oh, we miss you. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so nice to see you. And now we have Brianna. And Brianna, again, I have a relationship with Brianna. We never shared a child in the same class, but we have our relationship through our committee work. So we were a committee together. We were co-presidents together. And so co-presidents is like a committee with just, well, you have a board of directors to manage, but you work closely together. So that like really, that makes you become close with the people that you're working with so closely. So thankful for, Brianna has children who are older than mine. So I feel like I got to learn a lot of her wisdom I was a brand new member pretty much, and a brand new parent. So, okay, it's all yours.
Thanks, Amy. And that's also a shout out to board service, should you wish to continue it in the future. So I have 3 children, and they're quite spread out in age. So the oldest is in the 9th grade, and I hope you can't hear them now. We also have a dog, but 9th grade, 5th grade, and 1st grade. The 1st grader is peaking. So we've had a lot of years in the school, and we've had years away in between because our kids are so far spread out. And one of the things that people ask me a lot is, do you miss the school? And at the risk of, this is not offensive, Leslie, but I always kind of say no, because I feel like the school's still with me. And I don't have a child who's going there right now, but I have so much community that has been built through the school. And I would just say to people, like, you're at an earlier stage in a journey, but it takes a long time to build relationships. And even when my oldest was in Leaves and Tracks, I did start to feel connected to the other parents, but so much of that has happened since then as well. So just kind of being open to staying connected with people over time. With my 9th grader, we still go on an annual camping trip with that group. It's like 8 or 9 families who still go every year. The first time I ever left my oldest home alone, I was like, I only had to leave for like 15 minutes. I was like, don't open the door for anybody. And he said, well, what if Jeff knocks on the door? And Jeff was a dad from the purple school. I said, okay, you could open the door for Jeff. And he's like, well, what if Wakako knocks on the door? None of these people are going to knock on the door. But anyway, he listed like 5 people that he knew it would be okay to open the door for. And of course, they were all cooperative school parents. So as a parent, you guys have probably already figured out that you really can't do it by yourself. Even if you have 2 parents, it's still not enough. You need a lot of support. And so the more other adults that you can connect with to be friends to your children, I think that's really important and valuable. And now as they grow, those adults are not only the people that my kids would open the door to, but as they get their own cell phone, those are the adults whose numbers they have. So it's just been absolutely super important. And in terms of building those relationships, I would just say, like, just say yes to last minute play dates. Just send out an email or a WhatsApp or whatever you're doing now to say, hey, I'm going to the playground in 10 minutes. And when you see those, just try to go. Like, that's how you form connections to each other. And another thing that was important for me at the school was, some parents I clicked with more than others, but I also felt it was my job at the school, and I still feel it's my job to be a friend to all the children at the school. And so the way I've always tried to do that is supporting the other parents, understanding that some parents are like Amy Dumeyer, who you might have noticed, like, practically wears a cape. I mean, like, come on. Like, she's incredible. And some parents might, it might be a lot harder for them to organize things. For example, maybe that parent is you, maybe that parent is me. But like, on a day, if you're having a good day and you can like pick up somebody's kid, just do that, or host the play date or whatever. And I'm sure nobody's keeping count, but just to the extent that you can just let go of things being even or always reciprocal, the kids win in the long run. And I think that's what's most important. So I think that's it. Oh, and it goes so fast. It's such a cliche, but then they're like grown up. That's all.
Thank you so much. The idea of your children having a larger community of the adults that they trust is huge, and something that I learned from you, Brian, in the beginning, and it really resonates now that I have a middle schooler. We had an emergency with nothing, it was fine, but like an emergency with Oliver, and I couldn't make it to middle school pickup. And I thought, who could do this for me? And I immediately went to a purple school family who lived right by, because I knew he wouldn't be concerned. He would know those people as like almost parents of his own. So lastly, Stephen Jones, who I really wish he could be here, and he really wishes he could be here too, but he's doing, he ended up having to teach a class at the University of Maryland, but he is a parent whom I have a relationship with. Again, we did not share a class, but I got to know his wife Megan and Stephen through the parent education program that we ran at the school. And he wanted me to share his words with you. Let me find them. So he just said that he appreciates what he got from the school, both learning how to teach his child and how to parent. The relationships with the other families were most important because they're not from the area, so they don't have family in the area. Now he knows that his child has other adults that she can reach out to and trust and just talk with. Imagining, like Leslie said, the one-day teenager it's helpful for him to know that there's other people that she might want to talk to when she doesn't maybe feel like she could talk to him. So that was just really nice to know about the community. Okay, so Leslie, you can go back to sharing the screen if you don't mind, and we will continue with our number 3. And as Leslie is pulling that up, I'll just, so our number 3 is, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about how to be an adult member of the school. And I think it's really important to remember that, so we are a community of families, and in the grand scheme of things, our current enrolled member community is fairly small. And given our size and the fact that our school is, well, not, I don't want to say completely, but it is mostly community run, a lot is asked of our families. And a lot is given to the families in return. So I think Liz and Brianna and Stephen's words helped illustrate how much families gain from the school. That's kind of our why. So let's dive into learning about being engaged as adult members and how our contributions really do add up to make the whole of our school. And this will be our 3 of tonight's 1, 2, 3. A brief bit of background, just to kind of get us thinking about our school from the lens of community run. Our school was established in 1942 as a parent participatory school. So it's nearly 80 years old. And just as an aside, our children still use these exact same unit blocks today, which I think is pretty cool. On the next slide, these are just some photos to show that families have always contributed. From its onset, the school has relied on volunteer work provided by its adult members. And I actually, Leslie, I meant to double check with you. If I get it wrong, you can correct me now, but I'm gonna say currently we only have 4 paid school employees. Is that right? 3 teachers, and of course, Heidi, our bookkeeper. Everything else that happens is through the parents. Okay, the next slide. I love this photo. Our children wouldn't be at the cooperative school without the volunteer work of parents who came before us throughout the history of the school. Here's an example. This is the group of parents on the school's board of directors in 2001. They were in charge of purchasing and renovating our current school, the bungalow at 8204 Flower Avenue. It is so interesting to know that only half of these families had a child that would attend at this new building. The majority of people who worked on getting the school and renovating the school would not even have a child who attended it. That kind of shows the community spirit. And the next photo just shows the bungalow. It was transformed into from looking like this to the purple school we all know today. And the work was done by the parent members. In the next photo, just to show you, this is, and I know many of us haven't been able to be in the backyard, but this was how the backyard looked, which is empty. And we of course know from the photos we saw that it's not empty right now. And then the next photo just shows the start of parent work. So parents built the feature elements of our play yard, like the sand pit and the berm, and those are still there today. More recently, parents built the antlered ship, which is there today. Essentially, parents continue to leave their legacy behind, a gift for future generations of children who will have their turn to walk through the garden gate. So that was some history of a little bit how parents have always continued to give, and because of parents giving, our school is still running. So now is our turn to give, and we have some responsibilities as the adult members. One of those is typically co-oping, but since we cannot be in school to co-op right now, we're going to focus on the other facets of our adult member responsibilities. We won't really focus on co-oping today. So membership meetings. You're doing this right now. As adult members of our school, we attend monthly membership meetings. Right now they're on the Zoom platform, and they typically occur the third Wednesday night of the month. Sometimes that gets switched depending if there's a holiday or school vacation. But you can find all the dates for the membership meetings on the school calendar, which is on the school member site. As you've been noticing, I'll send an email reminder the week before to introduce what the topic of the parent education will be. And the co-presidents will send an email the day before that includes the agenda and the Zoom link. The membership meetings, why do we do them? They help us, the adult community, establish a shared understanding and a shared vocabulary about school logistics and the school's programming and curriculum. We learn these things together so we can teach our children and each other's children. So when we do get together at playgrounds, we have a shared way of talking and interacting with all the children. Like a shared understanding and a shared vocabulary could be a way to think about it. So participating in member meetings is one way to be an involved adult member. That way we're on the same page. If something comes up, I want to just point out in this section, we had something come up with a very ill child tonight. So obviously that family is tending to their child. That happens. The membership meetings are being recorded, and we have those available shortly after the meeting. It takes a little bit of time to get them off the Zoom cloud, but I'd say within a week, they're available on the school's YouTube site. And I will always send an email reminder to say that the meeting is there. Last month, what happened was we had just only the audio for some reason. I think we figured out why, but so to listen to that, it was just an audio recording, so you'll have to hear it like a podcast style. The good news was we did have the parent education portion. We had the slides with all the photos that all came through. So those will always be there for folks to either just revisit if there was something like those language cues that you want to see again, or if you have to miss the meeting, you can get caught up to speed so that you are in the know with what's going on. I should say, we'll go to the next part, but of course, if you have any questions about any of these, I forgot to mention that, please definitely add them to the chat. So committee work. At the start of the meeting, we had the opportunity to meet all of our schools' board of directors for this school year. And many of those directors lead committees. Some of them work more solo, like Dan shared in his treasurer role. But the directors and the committees take care of many aspects of the school to keep the school operational. And each family is responsible for committee work. So one person in a family unit participates in a committee, and fully participating in your committee by attending meetings, and each committee has an email list, and the committees have a director. All of those aspects of committee work are crucial. I was listening to all the things that each committee does, and it's just a well-oiled machine, each one contributing to our whole. And if one of them wasn't operating, then a piece of our school would be lacking. So part of our responsibility as members is to participate fully in our committee work. And then the next one, Leslie, our weekend reviews. So our teachers, you might have noticed, they take great care and spend quite a lot of time when writing the class weekend reviews every single week, which is quite a commitment. But the weekend reviews are required reading for our members. So part of being a fully participating as an adult member is to read the class weekend review. But they are so valuable. It's such a gift to us. While we have to read it, they're such joyful work to read it. And they're full of learning for our parents. They're another way for adults to obtain common language and a shared understanding about the children's life at school. And as Liz shared in her testimony, they are something that I find myself referring back to time and time again. A lot of families either print them out or save them as PDFs or in some fashion on their computer so that they have them as a resource. Some ideas, just I want to talk about their weekend reviews. Hopefully everyone's been able to access them. I know Micah shared at the last meeting, if you can't access weekend reviews, she should definitely be someone that you contact to help sort through that. They are found on the school's member site. There's a link to the member site at the bottom of our teachers' emails when they email the class. And you have to read your class's weekend review, but it's quite valuable to read all 3 classes, and you're able to. It's not, they're not like only limited to parents in that class. So you can click through any of the weekend reviews. I think in addition to giving us the common language and the shared understanding about the children's life at school, the teachers show the books that were read in class. So one idea that has worked well for many families is to use that as some ideas of books you can check out from the library if you're visiting the library, and you can review those or read them again with your child. Also, looking at the weekend review with your child is really great. The photos typically spark conversations and get your child to help talk a little bit more about the school day. Speaking of which, Leslie wrote a really nice weekend review in the Leaves class that talked about the routine of sharing one's day, which sometimes maybe you've heard, like when you say, how was your day? They just say like, okay, one word answer. So it kind of helps extend the conversation maybe when you look at the weekend review together or even read parts aloud. Okay, survival guide. So is another component of being an adult member of our school. So all families participate in and support all of the initiatives of the Survival Guide Committee. That's something we agreed to do. And participation in survival guide efforts is important to our school's financial health. Our operating budget kind of assumes revenue from the survival guide. So as Jennifer said, when we got to meet her, this year she'll need our connections and our talents and our time. And she also mentioned that there will be some changes. So we'll learn more from the survival guide, from Jennifer and her survival guide committee. The plan is at our December membership meeting, I think. So it's just something, there's more to come about the specifics, but I think it's good to know that supporting the initiatives of this committee is something that we need all hands on deck for. Okay, and this next one, community building, this isn't a requirement, so I kind of will take a quick pause. So everything we discussed ahead of time, like, well, we didn't really discuss co-oping. We know that that's like a placeholder. Coming to membership meetings and participating in our committee work and reading the weekend reviews and fully supporting survival guide. Those are things we have to do to support our school so that it can run and operate and continue to be a school for the next 80 years down the road for someone else's children. It's kind of like we're stewards of the school in this time. Community building is just such an added bonus. Community building activities are sponsored. There's a committee whose job it is to get these up and running. And Gary talked a little bit about his committee. We each have a class representative, and that's their family's contribution to committee work. And the class representatives help with the community building initiative. Things that are community building, such as like attending a hike in the woods, or Liz, who spoke, the alumni Liz said, going on a camping trip, or going to ride bikes on Sligo Creek Park when it's closed down. Those are not, there's a kind of a small separation. I just wanted to clarify so new families could understand. You don't have to go to those things. They're not mandatory. They're not part of the school's curriculum, but they sure are rewarding to go to. And these are the kinds of activities that help families get to know one another. Something Brianna said really resonated with me about the idea of me as an adult building relationships with the children that are that go to our school. That's something that can happen at these events where you get to know the other children and you get to know the other parents too. Your children get to know the other parents as well. So while not mandatory, they are something that offer great reward, and I think are worth putting some effort into trying to do. So community building, I think Brianna talked a little bit about that, where she was saying maybe you're not the one who likes to organize play dates, which is very much true of many people. The class reps do get things started, but they don't have to be the only people who are suggesting outings. The one thing that is important to keep in mind when suggesting outings is trying to give access to all families. And I have a quick example of something that I observed in one of my classes at one point, where kind of really drove this message home for me. Of course, everyone has different personalities, and some people are more introverted and some people are more extroverted. And this was a case where a couple people were making plans at pickup on the parking lot, and the group of people making plans kind of grew in size until it felt, and I was just observing. I was an observer. I'm usually an observer by nature. I noticed this one parent was not involved in that. And it seemed like in a moment that everyone else kind of was. And I happen to know that this parent, who is pretty introverted, also had, I want to call it almost like a misrepresentation in her own mind of her child, like an insecurity, maybe is a better way to say it. I noticed the parent, I knew about the parent that had this misconception that her child was like too wild or too energetic. And I could see this narrative kind of taking form that I'm not being included because my kid's too wild. And the energy of my child is too big. And that's why this for like a little group is getting together, but not asking me to come. That, of course, was not true at all. But you can see how that might help reinforce some insecurity we might have about, oftentimes it's our child, but it could be about ourselves. I only share that parking lot anecdote just to say, of course, like things happen spontaneously, but we want to give it our best effort to make sure that we're providing access for all families to attend community activities. That is, I'm definitely guilty of this, but one thing I just started thinking of is one idea is to remember that not everyone has constant email access, like not the ability to check their email like every 5 minutes, or is not constantly at a phone or computer. So sometimes it might mean planning something a little further out to give people access. Another thing I was just kind of reminding myself about is not everyone lives together in the same house. So that's something to think about. Not all parents can come to pick up. Sometimes a child care provider comes to pick up. So of course, nothing's done to leave someone out intentionally, but I think it's important that we commit to trying to purposefully give access to all kids and all family members when thinking about what we can do for community building. Okay. Leslie, what you were kind of manning the chat. And I think we might be good there. Gary just said that there's an invitation to all the families to go to pumpkin picking, and he has the date and time in the chat. Thank you, Gary. That's a great invitation. If there's no burning questions about both our membership expectations and community building opportunities that have great value for our family, I wanted to just circle back to our tip for home, which I had some more photo examples, which might be helpful to see. We didn't get to these photo examples before our alumni speakers joined us. Okay, so I think we'll head there. Leslie, you can go to the next photo. Here, I just wanted to point out, you can certainly add written directions for older children who read independently, but the next couple slides they do have written directions, you'll see, and that wasn't the purpose. I'm just pointing that out so you don't think you need to do that. The reason why these next couple photos have written directions propped up on easels are because I set them up at the school, inside the school during a non-COVID year. And they were placed around the rooms simply to give other adults ideas for different setups they might include at home. These are all on pretty fancy trays. You don't have to use a tray. You can use any of the easy to make, I would just use a piece of paper probably at home, or placemats, because they're already out on our tables. But this idea here is, this has some counters, and the kid, actually these are counters that have one color on one side and one color on the other side. You probably don't have those at your house because those aren't something a lot of people have. But the idea here is you could put anything in here, some of one color and some of another color, and they were filling the counters and sorting them. So that's a one skill, to sort, and then counting to figure out how many red and how many yellow. And just like at school with our young children, Ada and Leslie will give verbal directions. That's how we would set it up at home. We would verbally tell our children what to do. And then, of course, if you have someone who can independently read, you could set it up with words like that.
And then, so a suggestion at home for home, instead of, if you don't have counters, think of red kidney beans and obviously dried ones, red kidney beans and some other colored beans. So you don't have to have red counters. You don't have to go out and get those. You can have light colored stones and dark colored stones. You're just trying to look for something different. Thanks. And then
Oh yeah, and Janet, I just want to, and you can, thank you, Leslie. Janet, I hope you don't mind. I just saw your comment pop up, and it is a point about community building that I failed to mention, and it's a really good reminder. Janet just says, a fellow parent reminded me today the importance of responding to invitations, even if it is to say you can't attend. It helps build community and communication. It also makes that person who sent the invitation feel heard and recognized, perhaps. So thanks. That's a good reminder, Janet. Okay, the next slide is actually something I learned from one of the 1 million things I've learned from the cooperative school and the teachers there, that you could give push pins to small children with your supervision, of course, and they could use those to work on fine motor, and they would love working with those because they have to pick it up just so with their fingers and place it in. Those are trivets, like hot pads that you could put a dish out of the oven on. And here, the idea I put is an idea that you can try working with young children on, where you say, put some on there and arrange them or place them, whatever words you want to use, so you can check with your eyes. And checking with your eyes means tell me how many without counting. It's a prompt I like to use with kids. Check with your eyes is a lot. Eventually they can learn the word subitize and they understand what that means, but check with your eyes is a first introduction to that skill. So how they could check with their eyes, they might arrange them to look like the pips, which is the fancy word for the dots, on a number cube or a dice that you use to play like a board game. That's one way you could arrange them to check with your eyes. There's others too. Okay, the next slide says, these are dominoes, which some people have at their house, but you might not, and therefore this wouldn't be something you would use. Like, I'm going to keep showing you and mentioning, it's not intended that you buy new supplies. It would be, if you happen to have dominoes, you could put them in that, whoa, you're going all the way forward, but I'm going to keep talking about dominoes. You could put them as an invitation for a challenge work, and you could ask how many, and you could talk about how you know. That's another question. How do you know? Those little yellow squares are just, they are a divider is what it's called, that went in a 3-ring binder, and it separated sections of a binder, and I just cut it apart. And it is kind of like a highlighter. So sometimes when young kids are telling you how they see something, the highlighter overlay can help them show you the part that they can see or that they know. These dominoes have bigger quantities, which you can find dominoes, you can sort through and find dominoes with smaller numbers, but in that example. Okay, the next one is something that I set up, and like a turtle crossing to a blue patch, which is supposed to look like a pond. And it says, how many more do you need to make 10? So that's just something you could talk if someone already knows how to count, that's something, an invitation you could present. Really, I'm just trying to show you there's so many different options and avenues. There's lots you can do with these challenges at home. Okay, the next one, the next photo is just showing creative use of materials that you might have at home. Those are just buttons. So you may have a button jar of extra buttons, and along with the buttons are tweezers, 2 pairs of tweezers. And that's showing how you can add fine motor to this activity. And this is a one-to-one correspondence activity. I talked about that at the start, where the idea is you're putting 1 bead per cup. And this idea of when you one-to-one match helps lead to being able to count the quantity of things, because you can say 1 number word for everything you touch. We do a lot of one-to-one correspondence. The students do at our school program. So that's an idea of a tray. That's bonus because I actually don't think I set up this tray, but those cups are set up in a subitized fashion because you can tell that they're 5 without counting. Maybe that was you, Leslie. You get bonus points. Okay, the next photo is just showing another way you can use materials. That's aquarium gravel. I mean, I don't have that at home, but I do have lots of things. I have sand and I have little tiny rocks that we put at the bottom of plants. So something like that. And that's just like a jar from the kitchen. And the addition of the dice, the idea here is you could roll and you could make that many scoops. So if you roll a 2, you could put 2 scoops into the jar, which works. That clasp on that jar is handy for fine motor practice. Okay, the next one, oh yeah, thanks, Liana. You said dried rice would be a really good thing that you probably have in your kitchen. Like that idea. This here is just like, those are animal figures. They happen to be ducks. And then baskets, and those are some sticks and some gemstones. But the idea here was that you could work on math stories, which our students do at school. I know that the Leaves were doing it with their paintings, but there's lots of ways you can work on math stories. The idea is telling a story, which we know is something that's important in our curriculum, but adding math to it. So I might tell the story that all the ducks are going to sleep for the night in their nests, but they want the same number of ducks in each basket. And then I could challenge the child to see if they could put the ducks to sleep. There's lots of stories you could tell. You don't even need all those materials, but that was just a reminder that that could be a challenge. Okay. I put a bunch of photo sets in here to show you that everything isn't neat and tidy and perfect. Like there's no, I'm thinking back to the photos at school when they were on the new tables, which were so shiny, and they had the black circle mats and everything looked so great. Sometimes it's kind of just like a hodgepodge of something, but this was a challenge to do some observational drawings. And we had some resources, and it still was equally successful. It just looked kind of haphazard. The next photo is here to show us that cooking can count as a challenge. And here everyone's workspace was just defined by a piece of parchment paper. And you can see the helping hand is really working to help keep the cookie still to spread the icing. So that's something that can help work on fine motors, and it's like really practical because you might be doing something like decorating holiday cookies anyway. The next photo shows something similar. It was doing some prep for dinner. I think I mentioned at the start, you may need to accomplish something. So that might be why you want to give a challenge task to your children. And a lot of times I need to accomplish cooking a meal. So this was a challenge. Everyone's workspace was defined by a cutting board, and they were using some child knives to cut some things that I actually needed. So there was like multiple layers there. Yeah, you can go to the next one. That's okay. This is just to show like another material set up about how things you can find can help. Like I found that dish that has all those sections at the thrift store, and that's a really great one for one-to-one match. And those tree cookies are something that we just cut. A branch fell down in our yard and we just sliced them up, that they can help add to one-to-one match. Oh my goodness, Leslie. When you get to the last picture, then you just have to stop, okay? You asked if I deleted those things and I did not. Okay, anyway, this is just to show you how these challenges can evolve over time. So I made these challenges for kids who were 7 and 9 at the time. And they did read these directions and they needed very little help from me now that they were older, but they were in the habit of doing these challenges, coffee table challenges, as I was calling them. And they just read the directions and completed the task. And these were just things I had. This is like, those letters are from a game that has another purpose, but I just kind of put them on a tray. And the faces, again, are also from a game, but I repurposed them to have that, that they were trying to make faces with the rule of only natural resources. Okay, don't go to the next slide because it's the German slides that I never deleted. All right, 8:56, we have 4 minutes. We're definitely not keeping you to 9:30 this week. And
then Carmen, can I give a shout out?
Yeah.
If you take a tour of the weekend reviews, especially this one, since we finally got our tables, you'll be able to start seeing some of the things that we do at school, and of course in the seats class too, you'll start seeing tabletop activities and for tips at home. But I just think that it's like, like the shout out to rice, shout out to dried beans, and Play-Doh at home, anything that you can touch anyway, that stick things into, beads, those are all things that are really good. I'm keen on having low mess. So if anybody has any questions, let's give a shout out.
Yeah, you can put your questions in the chat, or you can just unmute and say them aloud.
And Janet put the link for this for the feedback for the wooden playground on Sligo Creek. I'm sad about that being renovated, honestly, but that's okay. They already took the swings away. You don't even know, youngins. You don't even know. They used to have full-length swings down there on Sligo Creek that you could jump and fly out of, but no. Anyway, so just make sure you vote against having synthetic off-gassing. That stuff is poison. Okay, so you have any questions for Amy?
Well, Kristen shared that their au pair is able to read the weekend reviews just to be, it's more about that idea of like common shared language and understanding. So nice idea. And the school placemats are helpful to get to know the children and to open up conversations with your own children. Cool. Well, thank you everyone for attending. And like I said, we'll put the recording on the YouTube if you need to review anything or revisit.